Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Law and Justice Party won the parliamentary elections for the third time in a row and for the fourth time in the history of the party, gaining at least 36.6% of the vote. However, the party may not obtain the majority of 231 seats in the Sejm that would allow it to govern independently. Polish politicians are waiting for the announcement of the list to start negotiations regarding the appointment of a new government. With more, here is Łukasz Zmuda of Telewizja Republika.
This year's parliamentary elections will go down in history as those with the highest turnout since 1989. According to preliminary estimates by Ipsos, the turnout was 72.9%.
Pokazaliśmy, że odpowiedzialnie bierzemy sprawy w swoje ręce.
We have shown that we take matters into our own hands responsibly. We are all waiting for the National Electoral Commission to complete its work. Once again, I would like to thank all the voters and all my compatriots who took part in the elections, both in Poland and abroad. I'm very grateful for that.
Wszystkim moim rodakom, którzy wzięli udział w wyborach i w Polsce, i poza granicami.
The National Electoral Commission receives voting results from hour to hour. The final results will probably be known on Tuesday. According to the late poll, Law and Justice received 36.6% support, Civic Coalition was in second place with 31%, and the Third Way was third with 13.5%. The Left also enters the Sejm with 8.6% and Confederation with 6.5%. Law and Justice achieved the highest result in the parliamentary elections for the third time in a row. The victory of the ruling party does not yet give it a majority to rule independently. That is why a leaders' meeting was held today at the headquarters of Law and Justice. After the results were announced, Jarosław Kaczyński said that PiS politicians would do everything possible to continue implementing the party's programme, despite the coalition that is against the united right. The question before us is, of course, whether this success will be possible in the next term of office of our government, and we do not know that yet. In turn, Civic Coalition's headquarters felt an atmosphere of victory despite taking second place. Donald Tusk announced his willingness to form a government in coalition with the Third Way and the Left.
Nigdy w życiu.
I have never been so happy with this second place in my life. Poland won, democracy won.
Polska wygrała demokracja.
The Confederation suffered a defeat which even one of its leaders, Sławomir Mencen, admitted. The party began to blame each other because just a few weeks ago the polls gave it a result of over 10%. I feel responsible for this result. Perhaps the day has finally come that I can call the greatest failure of my life. The National Electoral Commission counts the votes received from polling stations on a continuing basis. Civic Coalition won the parliamentary elections in countries such as Latvia, Lithuania and Moldova. The majority of the American Polonia chose Law and Justice. For many, the result of Szymon Hołownia and Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz's Third Way is a surprise. They took over the part of the electorate from the centre of the political scene and the voters of Confederation. Many commentators did not rate our chances of crossing the electoral threshold and for completing our project. Law and Justice may have about 200 seats. 231 seats are needed to rule independently. The Third Way declared from the beginning that Polska 2050 and PSL will create two separate parliamentary clubs after the election, Polska 2050 and PSL.
Along with the ballot papers, Poles received a referendum ballot paper with 4 questions on privatisation, the retirement age, border security and migration. According to preliminary results, over 40% of the electorate took part. However, the threshold for making the referendum mandatory is set at 50%, so the results are not binding. Konrad Chmieła of Telewizja Republika has the story.
According to a late poll, turnout in the referendum was 40%. The result of the plebiscite will not be binding because the number of eligible voters did not exceed 50%. The State Electoral Commission provides constant information on the partial results. In this case, the number of eligible voters, that is the number of citizens who are on the lists, was 13,453,177. This is 42.7%. After verifying the voter's identity, the Electoral Commission was obliged to issue all voting papers for the same Senate and referendum. However, in many polling stations, Commission members asked whether the voter wanted to collect all the ballot paper, which was illegal and was a violation of the electoral silence. Committee members often told voters that there was no need to take the referendum ballot paper. There were also cases in which committee members intentionally did not issue a referendum ballot. If a referendum ballot paper has been issued, it should be placed in the ballot box. Even if it was placed there blank, it would count towards the turnout as an invalid vote. However, if it was torn into 2 or more parts, then it would not be included in the turnout. However, the perpetrator may be held criminally liable for destroying the referendum ballot paper. According to the late poll, 95.5% of voters expressed their opposition to the sale of state property. 94% opposed raising the retirement age. When asked about the elimination of the barrier on the Polish-Belarusian border, 95.7% chose to answer no, while 96.6% did not support forced relocation of migrants. Since 1989, Poles have voted in 6 referendums. Only 2 of them have been binding. The last one, in 2003, on accession to the European Union with a turnout of over 58%, was valid and binding, and over 77% of voters were in favour then.
Poles remember St. John Paul II, the Pope and a great Polish patriot. The Archbishop of Kraków, Cardinal Karol Wojtyła, was the first cardinal from Poland, as well as the first cardinal from outside Italy for 455 years to sit on the throne of St. Peter. He took the papal name John Paul II.
Habemus Papam!
Polish Cardinal Karol Wojtyła was elected Pope and took the regnal name Pope John Paul II on this day, 16th of October, in 1978. The election of John Paul II marked the first time a non-Italian had been selected to lead the Catholic Church in over 400 years. He was elected on the 8th ballot during the second conclave held in 1978, following the death of Pope John Paul I just over a month into that Pope's reign. John Paul II took his name to honour his predecessor, John Paul I. Born as Karol Józef Wojtyła in Wadowice, Poland on the 18th of May 1920, the future Pope was the youngest of the 3 children of Karol Wojtyła and Emilia Kaczorowska, according to his official biography on the Vatican website. John Paul II was the spiritual authority behind the overthrowing of communism. Poles finally had an international non-communist figure to look up to. The Pope used this, fighting not against the communists but against the abnormal situation of Poland as a totalitarian country. If it hadn't been for John Paul II's first pilgrimage to Poland in 1979, there would have been no solidarity. The pilgrimage was a groundbreaking, a sociologically powerful event, since an entire generation of Poles became aware of their power and felt a surge of courage to act. Solidarity became a nationwide movement that clearly identified itself with John Paul II. It was no coincidence that the Gdansk shipyard's entrance gate, with its portrait of John Paul II, became the movement's symbol. In this sense, the Pope took part in the overthrow of communism, though not as a political actor, but rather as an initiator of an ethical movement. The 16th of October was established as an official celebration by the Polish Parliament on the 27th of July 2005 as stated in the resolution, a tribute to the greatest authority of the 20th century, a man who reached into the sources of Christianity, taught us solidarity, courage and humility.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.